Hi, everybody. This is AJ Renee, and I hope everybody is having a blessed day. So today my video will be about walking you all through the permit that I'm going to actually mail out today, provided I get this video right, because this is like my 15th take. But so I haven't gone into too much detail about the business that I want to start. I just kind of gave the story of, feeling I wanted to quit my job and, the process that I had to go through that. And I really started this YouTube channel to be accountable to myself as I move forward, especially with my ADHD, because I can get distracted and, delay things a lot. So I just wanted to go through this process of keeping myself accountable, but I also know that because it's on the internet, somebody might see it. And so I also want to provide some, information for other people, in case they're kind of on the same path that I'm on. So I want to talk to you about the limited food establishment registration application that is specific to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So if you are a person interested in home baking and you want to sell to the public, you're going to have permits. You want to be in compliance with the government. You want to be in compliance with your borough and the county that you reside in. So when you're doing your research, make sure you're looking for applications specific to where you are, because every state, county, and borough are different. And so ordinances might be different, statutes and policies might be different. So make sure you're researching what's specific to your area. So I'm in Pennsylvania, and so we have this application through the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture. And the biggest thing here is food safety. You're going to be selling things to the public, and you want to make sure people aren't getting sick from your foods. That's what it is. And so the reason it's a limited food establishment is because I'm not permitted to make anything that is required to be temperature controlled. So for example, a cheesecake is required to be refrigerated. It's also made with dairy and different things like that. And it is, with it having to be temperature controlled, there's more of a risk of foodborne pathogens to be grown on these surfaces and stuff like that. And then when people go to consume that, if it's something that's really bad or there's too much of it, you could cause somebody to get sick. So I'm not permitted to make temperature controlled food. So that's why they call it limited. Whereas commercial kitchens, whether they're in residence or in a restaurant or something, commercial kitchens, because they have a completely different set of requirements and can kind of accommodate a completely different setup, there's more leeway there. But with the limited food establishment, it just has to be something like cookies, for example. Once they cool, you can put them in a box or put them in a bag, and they have a long shelf life. They don't have to be refrigerated. So things like that, you can sell. People do all kinds of stuff, but baked goods and stuff are one of the most common. So just that's an example of temperature control versus non-temperature control foods, like a cheesecake versus a chocolate chip cookie. But so yeah, it's limited because they just want to make sure you're not producing food that could cause people to get sick. Because that's just bad for everybody. And so at any rate, so you put the business information in there. They need to know what the owner type is. So I am a limited liability company, and then I'm the legal owner, and I'm the sole member of the organization or the company, and I had to put all my information in. And so the first thing after that, so in section 2 is zoning approvals. So you need to be in compliance with your local municipality, your local borough. Everybody has zoning ordinances that will tell you whether or not you are allowed to have a business out of your home, and if you are allowed, what the stipulations to that is. So, for example, I can't have employees because I don't have off-street parking. But now, for example, if I have family members living here, my family members could help me with the company. And if maybe I did have off-street parking, I'm allowed to have up to 2 non-familial employees that could help me. I guess because it's so small, they just don't want too many people in a small area because it's just a hazard. But those were an example of like an ordinance in my community. I can't have employees because I don't have off-street parking. So do you need to make any structural changes to your home? Are you the owner? And if you're not, do you have approval from the owner of the property? If you're a caterer, maybe like, do you have a particular type of hood that needs to be installed over your stove? Like things like that. So you need to make sure you're in compliance with the borough. And let me tell you, just a sidebar, stay on top of these people, because I went there on the 4th of April. Allegedly, my application was approved and my permit was approved on the 10th. I didn't hear anything back from them. I called 3 times. I left 2 voicemails and I left a message because the 3rd time I actually was able to speak to somebody and nobody called me back. Nobody left a voicemail, nothing. So when I went, I was like, listen, I need my permit. I need to know if it's approved or not. And they were like, oh, well, it was approved on the 10th. Like, well, today is April 21st. Like, why didn't you all say anything? And it's, oh, we just normally email it. And they didn't say that when I first dropped it off. But I looked and it was not in my email. It was not in my spam or junk box. So they're like, well, maybe we just typed in the wrong email address, which I'm like, oh, great. So now somebody has my personal, my home address, in their email. And hopefully they're not a psycho and hopefully they deleted it. And hopefully, best case scenario, it was an undeliverable message and it bounced back. But, yeah, so make sure you're staying on top of them. And the thing is, they are busy. They got other things to do and other companies and people to worry about. Nobody's going to advocate for you more than you. So you need to make sure you're staying on top of that. So I'm glad that I just went down there and showed my face and I got my permit. So made a copy of that. And I put that with my application. So then the next section is your water, sewer, and waste information. So you need to let them know if you're connected to a public water source or a non-public water source. So maybe you're using well water, for example. If you're using a non-public water source, you will need to get your water tested and then provide the results to that test for the application. And then section 4 is, oh wait, did I mention sewage? I think that was water, but my sewage company is the same. So I didn't have to, once what applied to one applied to the other. And then I had to note who my refuse or trash collectors are. And so the city, the locals, like we're in a borough that's separate from the city. So the city closest to me, they do the garbage pickup for us. And then I just noted who does our billing because we're contracted with the city. And I just noted like who our contract was through, in case they had any questions, because it can get a little confusing. So section 4 is providing your sales tax information. So I do have a license to collect sales taxes here in the state of Pennsylvania, or the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And I had to provide that. And there's also another box. I have no animals or in an active food establishment premise, nor will there ever be as long as I am registered as a limited food establishment. So what that means for me is this. My dog is not allowed in the apartment when I'm cooking. So I fortunately own a multifamily unit. And so I have 2 apartments. So when I'm producing food, I can be upstairs and then obviously I can live downstairs and the dog will be down here and I don't have to worry about him being upstairs. And because it's multifamily, I have 2 back doors, 2 front doors. So I don't have to exit the premises using a pathway where the dog has access to. Now, animals like that can roam around your house, that's what they're worried about. But animals that stay in a tank, like maybe a snake or a reptile of some sort, a fish, for example. Sorry, I just got an interesting email. A fish, for example, they don't really count because they can't get in and out the kitchen. Not a lot of hair and stuff everywhere, so stuff like that. But they want to make sure that there's no animals on the premises because nobody wants dog food and stuff like that. And they're baked goods. Like that's nasty. So that has to be noted. So like I said, I can do that because I have 2 units. So it's like, oh, the dog lives downstairs. This is business up here. So the next section, section 5, is business plan submission. Now, for me, I didn't have an official business plan. And I like how this application lists for the applicants 7 questions that they want you to answer. And obviously, if they're not applicable to what you're doing, don't worry about it. But for the ones that are, you need to write them out and put them with the application. So for this one, who are your ingredient suppliers? So maybe you have a membership to a place like a Costco, right? And you're going to pick up your food from a Costco. You need to list who that as a source of your foods, as an ingredient supplier. So storage areas for equipment, food products, and packaging. So as what is required is that you separate all your personal items from anything that's associated with the business. So I have 4 cabinets and then 2 bins that store like packaging, ingredients, like utensils like spoons and stuff like that. Now some of my bigger stuff like my KitchenAid mixer, it's not going to fit in the cabinet, but it's on the counter, So certain things like they're just going to have to work with me on. But for the most part, everything is separated. And you will have to label that stuff, by the way. Also in my refrigerator, like even though I'm not allowed to create temperature controlled foods to sell to the public, I still have things like butter and eggs, milk that may need to go into a recipe. And so I have the top shelf designated for that stuff. And the reason I chose the top shelf, just as a sidebar, you don't want things dripping down because, sometimes things spill over. I know, for example, like I didn't secure a bottle of wine once. And when I went to open up the refrigerator, there was wine that had leaked down in my refrigerator. So, maybe you have meat or something that you're thawing out. You don't want the meat to drip down onto anything that has to do with like business ingredients because, you might wash your hands and have your gloves on, but you don't know what's actually on your containers and stuff like that. You go to crack an egg and put something in somebody's, dessert. That could be a whole issue, So make sure your refrigerator stays clean and sanitized. You keep baking soda in there to keep the smell and stuff down, odor absorbers, things like that, because all those are like foodborne pathogens and stuff and bacterias that could contaminate, again, even if you're just cracking an egg, you don't want that stuff on the shell of your egg and you're touching that and you're mixing stuff. You just don't know. So keeping it sanitized, keeping the odors and stuff down, because you also don't want that stuff. Like if you ever not replace your baking soda and that weird smell that comes with that stuff starts to rest on the food. So, but at any rate, storage areas for equipment, types of equipment used in the production of food. So KitchenAid, mixer, oven, spoons, spatulas, stuff like that. Production methods, including packaging. So how are you canning your food if it's something that needs to be canned? How are you boxing it? Where are you storing this stuff once it's done? For me, I know that like I have boxes specific to each item, bags specific to other items. And these are not going to stay within my home for more than 8 hours post like completion. So things like that, how you intend to transport, how you plan to sell. So you're doing wholesale, and is those wholesales going to take place in state, or do you plan to sell out of state, which is a whole different set of requirements. So be mindful of that. Are you doing local farmers markets? Are you going to do retail from home? So for example, somebody calls or emails and say, hey, yes, I would like to order from you. Okay, well, I'm going to make it and I'm going to take it to them because I don't want strangers at my house. That's just not what we're doing. So, and then what's the other one? The addresses of the locations that you plan to sell. So maybe you've contracted with local cafes, or local restaurants, or maybe even your local grocery store. They want you to list those companies where you are going to sell your stuff. Again, everything needs to be traceable back to you, especially if there's a liability issue, because you want to make sure everybody's cool. So Section 7 is the product label submission. Now, for me, because at first I intend to sell directly to the consumer, it's not required for me to provide a list of ingredients or have a label. I do, however, need to have that stuff available in the instance somebody says, well, what's in this? I need to be able to readily say, oh, this is banana bread. There's bananas in there, obviously. There's flour, vanilla, salt, and, baking soda or whatever that goes in there. You need to be able to say that stuff and provide that for them upon request. Okay. So, and I don't really know the nuances when it comes to maybe it's a family recipe and it's something you need to keep private because you don't want somebody taking that recipe and selling it and making money off of your family recipe, right? So I'm not sure if they get into all the nuances of that. That may be something you have to discuss once your permit has been submitted, because I believe they're going to send somebody out to you to look at your kitchen, make sure everything's separate, make sure everything's labeled appropriately, and that you followed all the steps within the guidelines. So maybe you can discuss that with them then, but that might be a question to ask. But if you are selling again through a third party, you will need to have labels. And so they ask for a sample label. So that requires you to put the name of the item. So let's just say chocolate chip cookies. Then you need to have the ingredients. You need to show where the food was made. Then you need to show the weight or the count. So like if it's cookies, you need to say this is a dozen cookies. There's 12 cookies in here. And then if there's any allergens, that people need to be mindful of. So like eggs, for example, people have egg allergies. You want to note allergy warning, or just allergens, eggs, maybe there's, you have a product with nuts in it. You need to note this has nuts in it because you don't want to kill anybody, or cause a reaction. Section 8 is about laboratory testing. Now, most stuff will not need to be tested. So if you're making jams or jellies, you're going to need to have those tested. But a chocolate chip cookie is not going to need tested. Okay. So if you're going to sell bread, no, but a banana bread, depending on how moist it is, will need to be tested. So there's just different things like that. But you can know there's this is not applicable to me, or if it is applicable, to show that you did get it tested. Okay. Section 8 is production information. So they want to know what days of the week you're going to be open, what times that you're going to be making food, what type of establishment you're using. So for me, it'll be the kitchen is a personal use kitchen at home. Then you need to note the method of sale, and that's retail only, wholesale only, both retail and wholesale, and then internet sales. So for me, I do plan on advertising online. I'm not going to sell I'm not going to sell outside of Pennsylvania because I don't want to get in the whole interstate commerce piece, but I did note that. And then I noted the type of stuff that I would be selling. So they have a list, baked goods, breads, cakes, dry goods, cookies, et cetera, and you can check which ones those are. You need to write out the stuff that you're, type that out, check those off, and then provide how you plan to package those things. You also need to identify the number of employees that you're going to have. If it's just you, you mark 1. If there's more people than that, then you obviously note the appropriate number. And you also need to have an employee health policy. So I'm going to use the one from the FDA. At least I believe it was from the FDA. Actually, give me a second to check on that. But they have a whole pamphlet on food safety. So it is, you have the FDA employee health policy, because you need to know if you get sick, how are you going to conduct business? If your employees get sick, how are you going to conduct business? How are you properly handling food and stuff like that? So I'm going to use the FDA employee health policy. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And then finally, Section 9 is the production opening. So they want to know what date you plan to start. But that was also obviously going to depend on what they do with the application. And then Section 10 is basically, the statute, the policy or whatever, where it should be submitted, what needs to be listed on your cover letter, the amount of time it's supposed to take, how they're going to provide approval or disapproval, and the reasons that they may not have approved, et cetera, statutes that are listed on here. You just obviously complete that and then, print it out. You can email it, like I said, mail it, fax it. And then for limited food establishments that are doing baked goods, so they actually have a different, so you have the main thing, like, this is how much it costs, this is how you got to separate your kitchen, and this is how you got to keep animals and kids out, all that stuff. Then they'll say, okay, so here's a section for baked goods and what you need to know if you're doing baked goods specifically. Maybe you're doing jams, jellies, and similar products. So now they have a list of information you need to know for that. Then it's beverages, drinks, and juices. So maybe you're a juicer and you're going to start selling a special blend of juices. There's a section in there for that. Maybe you're canning foods. They have a section for canned foods and fermented foods. And so they really get specific about what you need to do. And then at the end, they have regulations that are relevant to food. Most of this is from the FDA, as you can imagine, the FDA and the Food Safety Act and the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture. And that's the end of the document. So it is a lot. It takes a little bit of time, especially if you're like me with the ADHD and the procrastination issues. Because I was supposed to have this done, if I'm going to be honest. But certain things are in your control, but like certain things were not. Like I couldn't control that they got my email wrong and didn't send me my permit. But some stuff you can't control, and you make sure you stay on it. And the stuff that you can't control, still stay on it and make sure that people are getting back to you. Okay? Last but not least, I want to show y'all my sneaks. So I do have a uniform now because, like I said, I might, start doing like expos and farmers markets and stuff like that once I get my permit approved, really. But when I'm delivering and stuff like that, I have my little uniform. And so I was originally looking for a pair of Nikes, and they were some cute Nikes too. They were like pink, black, and white, and gray. And the reason I like them is because the logo that I have, the girl in the logo, the guy drew a shoe that looked like a Nike. And I'm like, oh, this is so cute. I said, I want to buy a pair of Nikes so I can have shoes like the girl in the picture. And then that'll just be part of my uniform. Well, they were sold out in my size, the ones that I really wanted. So I end up looking online again, and Converse popped up because I think they just released their splatter collection for this year, and they had sneakers, the perfect colors. So my logo is pink, black, white, and gray, or pink, black, and gray. And they had pink, white, and gray, and black. And there's also, did I say black in my logo? Black is in the logo. Black, pink, white, and gray. Yeah, those are 4 colors. So these are all my colors in one shoe. So I want to wear these when I do my deliveries. I want to wear these if I'm like selling out like an expo or like a what do they call them? I can't even get the word out of my mouth. When people bring all the businesses together and people just selling stuff. An expo could be one of them. But you know what I'm trying to say, when I'm out and about, just so I can have my uniform. And the good thing is, because I never really spend that much money on shoes, even though these are only $85, for some people that's pennies. For me, it's a pretty penny, if that makes sense. But you can write these off on your taxes. So that's what that is. So I'm excited to try these on, see how they fit. Never owned a pair of Converses before, but I'm excited. And they match my t-shirt perfect. It's so precious. So I'm a little excited about that. And then speaking of taxes, I'm just going to throw this in here right quick at the end. I'm going to list the link for an organization called SCORE. My mentor just informed me about it because she cannot help me with the tax aspect of my business. And so I believe the services are free. And what you do is you go onto their website and you fill out the short application. And in that application, you just note what it is that you're trying to do and what you need help with specifically. And then they'll try to match you to a person who can help you, fulfill that particular need or task. So yeah, I'll provide that there for you too, because I'm a law student and I can't have tax fraud on my bar application because that could actually bar me from being a part of the bar. So I don't want that to happen. So so that's what it is. And I'll post the link in the description for the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture. And the PDF will be there, but I can also do the specific link to the PDF. I can put the information in for SCORE, and then maybe if you're interested in tennis shoes, I'll post Converse in there. And Converse did not ask me to do this. I was not paid to do this review. I'm just excited because it matches my t-shirts like perfectly. And so I'm excited about my little uniform. So it's the small things, you know. But I'm excited because it's my baby. And it's nice just to see, you know, the vision slowly but surely come into pass. And so, yeah, that's why I wanted to show those to you. But I'll post a link for those in the description box too, because maybe you like them and you want to try them. So that's all for today. I hope you all have a blessed day, or evening, or you know, whatever, again, this thing finds you, and that, you know, things are going well. I hope things are going well with your business ventures too. And if, you know, you have any comments or any additional questions, I can answer them as best I can. I'm not an expert in this at all. A lot of this I'm learning as I go. But, you know, what I have, you know, been able to understand, I will do my best to share it. And so, yeah, so that's all for me today. You all have a blessed one, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.